Welcome to the Sober and Happy podcast, where we talk about all things recovery related, how to navigate the challenges that we'll face along the way on our journey towards our best lives, and how we could go from living a life of simply just being sober to a life where we're both sober and happy. I think one of the biggest obstacles that many of us face when we are considering a sober life is worrying about how we're going to function without alcohol. To an outsider, this may seem crazy. It may seem obvious that alcohol is the cause of all of the problems in our lives, but for many of us, it is also the solution to many of the problems in our lives. So what do we do when alcohol seems to be both the problem and the solution? Are things going to get worse once we quit? How are we going to handle so many of the things that we turn to alcohol for? Well, that is what we're going to be talking about today. So buckle up. This is going to be a great episode. Welcome back. I want you to think back to the debates you've had in your head when you know that you need to stop something that is causing you pain today, but may also have some perceived benefits. Maybe you're thinking about quitting drinking and you're having that internal debate in your head right now. I know that every single time that I thought about quitting drinking was at a time when I knew alcohol was absolutely not good for me. At that moment, it was crystal clear that I needed to quit drinking. But that clarity was always quickly muddied by all the things I knew that I would lose when I quit drinking. Most of us in the depths of any addiction got there because whatever thing we were addicted to also provided a solution for something that we were struggling with. The reason we become addicted is because at some point the thing that is causing us so much pain right now used to seem like the answer to so many of our problems. I've heard a lot of people say, my worst day sober is still better than my best day drinking. And honestly, I think that's a little ridiculous. I could think back to some horrible days sober, and if my best day drinking even provided a fraction of the pain that those days did, I would have only drank once. We got addicted because it was so good at some point at solving the problems that we were seeking solutions for. I had some amazing days drinking. At one point, it seemed like finding alcohol was the best thing that ever happened to me. The anxiety that I felt I'd been carrying around for my whole life was lifted in a moment. Insecurities that crippled me melted away. I had days that were so fun that I still tell stories about them today. It was really good until it wasn't. The problem is that every time I'd consider quitting drinking, I would start thinking of all the things I felt I would lose when I would quit drinking. All of the things I thought alcohol provided for me. How am I going to socialize once I quit drinking? Am I going to revert to that shy, awkward teenager who didn't know how to talk to anybody at a party? How am I going to relax after a tough day at work? All of my friends drink. I can't lose my friends. And what about all the other stuff? The dark feelings, the depression, the guilt, the shame, the crippling fear. The anger that I've been carrying around for so long. Alcohol has been my companion to help take those feelings away. What will happen when it's gone? How can we possibly quit something when it seems to be the solution for so many of our struggles? If you're in this mindset about anything, whether it is quitting drinking or another part in your life where you're having a similar battle, I feel your pain. I know what that internal debate feels like. I know how it feels to fight so hard and then give in again. But I also know how it feels to finally stand up and fight for what I know in my heart is best for me and win that battle, and I'll show you how I did it. The first step is to get brutally honest with yourself about the consequences and benefits of alcohol in your life today. Not what it used to be like, not the joy and happiness that we're hoping to rediscover, but what it is like today. If you were to look at how alcohol affects your life today, what are the positives and the negatives? Yes, we're starting with the pros and cons list, so get out a piece of paper and write down all the good and bad things that alcohol does for you today. Don't think too much about it. Don't second guess anything at this stage of the process. If something pops into your head, pick a side and write it down. Now, once you're done with your list, we're going to now challenge some of the assumptions that we made about the benefits we're getting from alcohol. I know it is often hard to challenge your own thoughts, so when I do this, I try to imagine that I'm talking to a friend who's in a bad relationship. I know most of us have had someone that we care for stuck in a toxic relationship. We try to point out all the obvious reasons why they need to get out now, but they always have counter arguments. But he could be so sweet and loving at times. But she only acted that way because she is going through a lot of stress at work. But I love him so much. But I've been with her for so long. Now imagine how hard you fought to counter every argument that your friend tried to use to defend staying in that relationship. Imagine how hard you tried to get them to see through the excuses to stay and finally see the light for every reason they needed to leave. Imagine how hard you tried to get your friend out of a situation you knew that was bad for them because you wanted desperately to stop seeing them go through so much pain. Now, that is how hard I want you to fight for yourself right now. Go down that list of all the benefits you think you're getting from alcohol and challenge each one with the same determination you would to help your friend. Ask yourself, is this true today? And when you say it is, challenge yourself again and ask, is it really true? As you do this, you're going to discover some of the things that might be true today. You're also going to find things that might not be as true as you want them to be. Some things that used to be true at one point but are no longer true, and you're going to find some things that are complete BS. Now let me give you a few examples of things I struggled with when I wanted to quit drinking. I don't know how to deal with life sober. Now this one was absolutely true. I had used alcohol as a crutch for my entire adult life, and I honestly didn't know how to function without it. Another one was I only know how to have fun sober. This one had some truth to it, but also was flawed in many ways. Almost every fun memory I had in my adult life to that point involved drinking. Partly because alcohol did help get me out of my shell. But honestly, the biggest part of that was because I drank every time I went out to have fun. I don't have any evidence of whether I would have had fun without drinking because I never tried to have fun sober. And honestly, as I begin to think back on my fondest memories of drinking, I realized that most of them were years ago. The way I drank for the last many years of my drinking was not fun. Yes, I still managed to have some fun evenings here and there, but that was despite the pain from drinking and not because drinking was providing me the fun. My life at the end of my drinking was not fun. It was sad and it was depressing. This leads me to the next argument I've always had. Drinking helps me with my depression and anxiety. This one could be one of the most complex ones to navigate because even to the last day of my drinking, it did help relieve some of the symptoms of my depression and anxiety. Here's the thing with that though. Alcohol was only a temporary solution to anxiety and depression for me, and in the end, it was actually causing most of the anxiety and depression that I was feeling. So the cause could also double as a temporary solution. This is the cycle most of us get stuck in. It's like having a caffeine headache. The quickest way to get rid of it is to drink a cup of coffee. Yes, we could drink enough caffeine today to keep the headache away, but tomorrow we're going to wake up with the headache again caused by the caffeine we drank yesterday. Using alcohol to treat depression and anxiety is the same thing. Yes, you might get rid of it for the day, but how do you feel the next morning? Is the depression and anxiety gone, or is it worse? Go through and do this process for each item on your pros list. Here's the truth about losing alcohol as our solution for many of our problems. Things initially are going to get harder before they get easier. It is much easier at the moment to grab a bottle when things get hard, but learning how to deal with life's challenges and our emotions in a healthy way is the only long-term solution. But in the middle of the mess, it's hard to see the other side of the mountain, which is why we have two sides to our list. Once you are done with the pros side, now I want you to look at the cons list for your drinking. Go down each one on the list and write what you think that part of your life could look like sober. I don't want you to just write the first thing that pops in your head. I want you to imagine the absolute best alternative version that you could think of. For example, let's say on the cons list for alcohol is that it's negatively affecting relationships in your life. Since I know a lot of people who want to get sober are doing it because of the effects it's having on their relationship with their children, I will use that as an example. On the cons list, you've written down, it is hurting my relationship with my young daughter. For what it looks like if you got sober, I don't want you to just write down, I would have a better relationship with my daughter, because that doesn't have the kind of emotion that motivates change. I want you to think about what that life looks like. Is it being home to sit down at dinner and ask them about their day? Is it showing up at every basketball game, soccer match, or dance recital? Maybe even volunteering or coaching? What about the first time she looks at you and says how happy she is you quit drinking and how proud she is to have you as her parent? Imagine her being off to college. Every time she struggled with the class and questioned whether she could do it, she knew she could count on you to pick up the phone and remind her how strong she was. When that one boy broke her heart, she knew you would answer on the first ring, listen to her cry, tell her that she was too good for that boy anyways, and make her feel better. And when she graduated college, she knew you would be in the first row cheering her on because this version of you shows up for her every single time. And after the hats are tossed in the air and the graduation is over, she heads straight to you, gives you the kind of hug that melts your heart, looks at you with tears in her eyes and says, "I could have never done this without you." Now, how does that feel? The key to this step is getting beyond the analytical part of our brains and learning how to navigate towards our hearts. We need to feel what it will be like to change. That is what I want you to do for each item on the cons list. I know most of us have very vivid imaginations. We could imagine a worst case scenario so vividly that we could actually feel the same level of pain as if the actual event happened. We just need to start redirecting that great imagination on what the best case scenarios feel like also. When we're done with this exercise, now we will have a true pros and cons list. I want you to look at it again. Look at the real benefits that alcohol is still providing for you today and ask yourself if it is providing you more than what your ideal life looks like without alcohol. Is disappointing your drinking buddies who are pressuring you to drink with them and having to maybe find some new friends a worthy sacrifice to be able to share those life moments with your daughter in our example? Each list represents a path in your life, one with alcohol and one without. Both will have challenges and sacrifices, but which life will be worth the sacrifices that you have to make? Which one will bring you lasting happiness and joy? And the final question that you must ask yourself, the one that only you could answer, which life do you choose? Thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope you have enjoyed the podcast. This week, think of one person that you think will benefit from listening to this episode, and please send it to them. Be the person who plants a positive seed in someone else's life. You never know how much it could impact them. New episodes come out each Friday, so I look forward to connecting with you next week. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Keep living sober and happy.